As a toe reader, there are a couple of things that I hear all the time. And some of them, this individual said to me, I was a dancer, so my feet are a little deformed. Or I stand on my feet all day for my work. And so my feet are, not very pretty. Or I was in an accident, or I broke my toes, or like there's all these reasons why people say that they have unusual toes or toes that have some deformities on them. And do all of those things contribute? Yeah, they absolutely do. But if we look at a population swath where, do all dancers exhibit toes, for example, that bend in this way and have nail problems? No. Many, yes, but not all. Or people who stand on their feet all day for work, do they have some similar toe patterns? Not really. They can show up in some ways, but there's a large percentage of dancers and a large percentage of people who work and standing on their feet all day who don't exhibit the same kind of movement of the toes and bones as others. This is my belief, and I just invite you to try this on, that there is a reason why. Yes, you are a dancer. Yes, you stand on your feet all day for work. And so your toes have started to exhibit this. But there's a reason why you and I are now in contact, because your toes have a message for you. And I get the honor of translating that message for you. The toes are speaking a language that I happen to speak and that I teach to others to learn how to speak, so that we can translate the messages from the toes, because the toes are the first messengers. They're what's connected to the earth. The toes tell us where we are right now. So I say this a lot in these readings. The map, the natal chart is the map of your life, and your toes tell you where you are. Because if you want to go to a certain place on this map, but you don't, or any map, and you don't know where you are, the directions are going to change drastically depending on where you are. So it's my delight to share with you the messages from your toes so that you have a clearer idea of where you are right now on the map of your life. So there's obviously some very strong messages that these toes are sharing. And just a little bit of education up front. The right foot is the way that you present to the world, the way that you interact with this three-dimensional world that we live in. And the left foot is your internal self. It's how you talk to yourself, the actions that you take for yourself, your thoughts, and your connection with source. And so from that space where right is outside, left is inside, and then we have spirit path toe and life path toe. Communication and expression toes are your second toes. Your third toes are your action toes. Your fourth toes are your relationship toes. And your fifth toes are your prosperity and trust toes. So I'm going to talk about a few of the less obvious messages first, and then we'll get to the obvious messages. So first of all, even though we've got this great toe that's really leaning into this second toe, you can see that this second toe is longer than all of the other toes. That's the longest toe. Even if this toe is straightened out, if we tracked that out, I'm just looking at the lines in the carpet here. If we tracked this out, this toe is still a little bit longer. That's because communication is so important to you. Expression is so important to you, both in the way that you are expressing and communicating out in the world and the way that you are in yourself. This is part of your way of being in integrity, is expressing and communicating yourself. In fact, when we look at your chart here, one of the things that struck me the most when I looked at this chart is look at all the fire we have going on. You've got a rising in Sagittarius, which is mutable fire. You have your sun, your Venus, your Mercury, and your South Node here in Aries, fire sign. And then you have your moon, your Saturn, and your part of fortune up here in Leo, which is another fire sign. So you definitely have so much fire in your chart. And so, fiery people, they can be, fire is something that can be out of control or very utilitarian and contained. And so people who have a lot of fire tend to be a little hard to handle. They can make other people uncomfortable because they're so big and fiery. And so your ability to express yourself in this way, to communicate, is very, very important. And being given the safe space to do so is very important. That is something that has been missing so much from your life. That's the number one thing I see when I see your toes, is that people have been trying to contain you your whole life, and you just won't have that. You will not be contained unless it's a container that you set up for yourself. So in this way of expressing and in this way of communicating, obviously we don't want to be a bonfire that is out of control in the way that we are expressing and communicating. But a bonfire offers light. It offers warmth. You don't want to get too close, but you think about all the human celebrations that have happened around large bonfires. That's you. This bonfire that definitely has the potential to get out of control fast, but also has the potential to bring people together in celebration, in spiritual practice, and to offer warmth. Not to mention all the other amazing things that fire can do. I see you as a bonfire. And so thinking of this bonfire as somebody who brings people together and offers them a warm place, because you know what it is like to not be loved and accepted for who you are. And because you have that wound, you have the ability to have this deep compassion to offer this space of warmth and celebration to others who have experienced the same thing. Oh, and look, your Chiron there is at 0 degrees. So very cuspy Chiron there at 0 degrees Taurus, just coming out of Aries. So, kind of a dual wound here. And the wound of Aries is that wound of I am, that wound of not fitting in, that wound of really wondering who am I, and what part do I have to play in this world? Okay. So your communication toes. Now, there is some blocked energy in these communication toes. We can see it especially right here around this first knuckle of the toes. So wherever you are right now in your life, just take off half of those years and a little before that. So what I'm seeing is kind of 18 to 25, that age range. I know you're doing a lot of work, and there's more work to do in releasing the energy from your inability at that point to express and communicate, where you may have been a tiny little flame that could be blown out by anyone at any time, or a raging bonfire that's out of control and creates a forest fire and burns things down. So doing some work on that, and I would invite you to just gently massage the toes, especially here in the middle, and do some journaling on some of these topics. What were some of the things that came up? I know you are a person who does the work, and by gently massaging these toes, it can actually help to bring those things up and release them faster. I've seen massively quick progress made just because people started manually massaging the toes to help remove that blocked physical energy that shows up in all the ways. Okay. And just knowing that about yourself, you're a communicator, you are an expressor, and you're not everybody's cup of tea, and that is okay. You have this sixth toe on the outside, obviously not a real toe, but this protrusion here on the outside. This is a very special gift. This is a global perspective. This is an ability to view humanity, to view the globe, and to have a global impact. Now, that global impact can look like somebody very famous who makes a big impact in, to all humanity. More times than not, it's somebody who, it's that ripple effect, who makes an impact in a lot of people's lives, and then that goes out. But you definitely have in this lifetime this gift, this ability to have an absolutely deep and global impact. That's what this sixth toe indicates. You've got your action toes here. So your action toes are ruled, and just so, because I know you speak the language of astrology, these second toes, they are ruled by Mercury. Okay, communication and expression. So let's just have a look at where Mercury is in your chart. Like we talked about, it is here in Aries. And so just realizing that your toes, how they're kind of square here on the ends, sometimes the way that you communicate can feel like being hit with a blunt object. So just realizing that about yourself. And again, you're not everybody's cup of tea. And that's okay. And that is okay. And then also being aware of that so that depending on who you're speaking with, you can speak in a way that feels less blunt, to somebody sensitive. All right, moving on to your action toes, which are ruled by Mars. Now it's interesting because you've got Mars over here in the third house in Pisces. So third house has to do with expression, with communication, and you've got Mars there, and it's in the sign of Pisces. So, transcendent, dreamy Pisces, that's where your action toe is. So probably sometimes your actions feel like they're all over the place. They're scattered. It's hard to just grab things in and make a plan. And it can feel really overwhelming in your mind, because you've got your Mars or your action there in Pisces, and it's showing up in your toes. You can see it's straight. You are an action taker, but you can see here, you kind of take the wandering road, and that's a-okay. But it might frustrate you as such a strong fiery person, because these are also the fire toes. So these are the ether toes, these are the air toes, and then your action toes are your fire toes. And so you may get really frustrated with yourself because you're taking the meandering path. You've also got some blocked energy in here. There's some actions that you want to take that you're not taking. And perhaps you know them, and then I would invite you to massage these toes, because that's going to crystallize and make more clear. So with your Mars there in Pisces, where you might be kind of, scattered, and massaging these toes while considering the questions, what's the action for my highest and best good? Massaging those toes while putting together your structure for how you're going to take action. That could be super beneficial for you. And then we have this toe over here. Action is important to you, both action in yourself and action from others. Like if people aren't taking action, if people aren't doing the work, if people aren't showing up, you don't have a lot of patience for that. Like your community are people who are in integrity and do what they say they're going to do, and the words and actions matching each other. But you can see in here where that that Pisces energy of Mars is showing up, because you come up here, And you got this little bend. This also indicates a change in career, a change in focus, a change in where the energy of your action is taking place. And it usually shows up in career or, like I'm literally trying to think of a time when this hasn't shown up in career, just because career is so action driven. Other changes are going to show up in the other toes. So, or this could be a big change in just the way that you are acting in the world. So accident. Well, I've never seen that. That could also show up here, because if you're in an accident and you're incapacitated in some way, the way that you're taking action might change. And again, this is action in the world. So you've got this cute little bend in the top of your toe that's just like, hey, I'm going along here. Oh, look, squirrel. So watch for the squirrels and massaging these toes and asking yourself, is this a squirrel? Am I getting distracted with all that kind of ethereal energy, so that you can stay on your task and taking those actions that really work for you and get you where you want to be. But then I also recommend, for at least a period of time each day, to allow yourself to just do whatever. If you're taking a walk, allow your mind to just wander all over the place. If you're making a meal, and you're just all over the kitchen, and you stir a little here, and then you start mixing here, and then you go make this, allow yourself to just take action in this kind of more random way. There's nothing wrong with that. And that would be good for your soul. So that, again, just like that bonfire, if it can be in a container of your creation, it's beautiful and it's helpful. So taking this scattered energy and putting it in a container, I allow myself to be scattered for, a period of time each day. Could really be good. And really, in that space is where a lot of creativity is going to come to you. Okay. We have our relationship toes here. So these relationship toes are really leaning into your action toes. So I'm going to guess that your primary languages of affection, they're normally called love languages, but I believe that they are languages of affection, are action. So, acts of service. And I think also words of affirmation are important to you. And I'll be very curious to have a conversation with you about what are your primary languages of affection, because they're definitely leaning here into the action toes. When we look at these toes, just for context, you've got a lot more blocked energy, and I would even say probably some callousing going on here in your relationships with others. And any people-pleasing tendencies that you have, it's time to stop that. Just stop that. Going through your friends, your contacts, your family members, and just being really aware of what relationships work for you and what relationships don't work for you. And then communicating that in a way that is uplifting for both of you. You don't need to go in with a blowtorch and completely burn the bridge. But you can put a gate up so that the bridge doesn't get to be passed. So I think that that's a really necessary part of your next steps here, is really looking at who do you want in your life and who no longer belongs there, and allowing them to go with gratitude. Your relationship with yourself, you're very self-aware. Not as much blocked energy you can see in here, and this toe is even a little straighter. So continue with this self-awareness. You are highly self-aware. And so just using that in this intentional way. Relationships are also important to you. And so really finding your friendlies. Who are your friendlies? Who's your group? Who's your circle? Finding those friendlies, and then, working on those relationships. And relationships don't have to be a lot of work. Um, but, reaching out occasionally, a good practice for you might be, one or two notes a day that you just send a quick text. Hey, thinking about you today. Um, that could be a really powerful practice for you in your relationship toes. Next, we have your prosperity and trust toes. So these toes have quite a bit of blocked energy in them. And this has to do with trusting yourself and trusting others. And this has to do with finding your friendlies. Who are the people you can trust? And then also realizing that everybody has the potential to let you down. The difference is are they unintentionally doing it with no malintent whatsoever? Those are still people you can trust. They're just humans. And then there's people who are just not trustworthy. So again, when you're going through your list of people, who are the people who are trustworthy and who are the people who are not trustworthy? I would also recommend gently massaging those toes and allowing yourself to receive prosperity and looking at what does prosperity mean to you, and getting intentional about that, doing some journal prompts on what does prosperity mean to you. Because there's so many ways that prosperity can show up for us in relationships, in financial prosperity, in opportunity prosperity. There's just all sorts of ways that prosperity can show up. What does it look like for you? And then rubbing those toes, knowing that whatever this prosperity is going to show up for you in the perfect way. And then again, going back to the trust, building a trusting relationship with yourself. In what areas do you not trust yourself? And taking a moment to write about that, because there is some lack of self-trust that you have. We can see this with the blocked energy in this toe. All right, now we're going to move to, okay, first I'm going to go over here and then we're going to talk about these big toes, because that's the biggest message from your toes. So we've already talked, about some of your fire energy here. I find it interesting that your most packed house here is your fourth house of home and family. You've got your South Node here. You've got your Chiron here. And then you've got these personal planets all in here. So you've got this packed fourth house. And so, this has to do with relationships. Like the fourth house is your home and family. These relationships. What is your family of choice? That's the words that are coming to. What is your family of choice? So identifying who's your family of choice and what roles do they play in your life. If you look at a family, in a family dynamic, there's different roles that we all play within that family. Some of them healthy, some of them not so healthy. The great thing in your family of choice is you get to look at what's the healthy role that this soul sibling is playing in my life. We look at Pluto up here in Libra, as well as your midheaven point up here in Libra. And, this has to do with these relationship toes. If it's not a relationship of equality, it's not going to work for you. And power, these power dynamics, that is also part of what you're doing in this lifetime. Power dynamics within community. Here are your 11th house, Scorpio, Uranus right here. So, and then, you've got your two house cusps going into Scorpio, which is about power. It's the sign of power. And so these relationship dynamics and being aware of in what areas are you, trying to dominate or dictate. Conversely, in what areas are you giving away your power? And it has to do with this action and with these relationship toes. Your relationship toes, these are your water toes. And Scorpio, as you know, is a water sign. So this really does have to do with the way that we are dealing with power dynamics. And so as you discover your soul siblings, who you're going to have these relationships with, consider what the power dynamic is and the role that you've been playing within that power dynamic. All right, now looking at these big toes, you have nothing in your first house, right? There is a big open house. And so this is about identity. And that's one of the purposes of you right now is what are you going to choose your identities to be? So often in life, as you know, like we take on these identities of what we should be or what we think we should be or how we're culturally programmed. And it's deep, it's so generational. And you get to choose your identity. This also has to do with that wound that is right on the cusp of Aries and the Chiron, which is right on the cusp of Aries and Taurus. Who am I? What do I value? What value do I offer? Is it safe to be in this world? When I see toes like this, that's really the question. Is it safe to be here? Is it safe to be me? And then we have, the bunions here and this. You've bent over backwards a good chunk of your life to the will and whims of whatever power there was at the time. And that's really showing up here. And I think this is why this is a very common thing I see this a lot with dancers, models. Those are the primary places where I see this. But people who have some level of fame, I've seen it with athletes too, where they've got, some level of fame or some standard, some kind of public standard that they're trying to live up to that just doesn't work for them. I've had many women tell me, well, it's because I wear heels. And yeah, you do wear heels. And yet there's a lot of women that wear heels that don't show up. So what is the message for you? That's what I love about the toes. These are personal messages for you. And because this is carried on, even though you are not dancing now, how is this still showing up? In what areas are you still bending over backwards? Are you still not taking, I'm just seeing it as this energy like we talked about with the action toe, where you're blending in, you're melding in, as opposed to standing right there. When we talk about fire, like all those flames, they all blend together. You're so multifaceted, so multi-talented. And yet having this fire be contained within the container that you set up, and I know that you're working on that, is really going to be beneficial. Now, this squareness here at the bottom, that's your leadership toes. That's your leadership style. And you look at how square it is. We talk about global impact. You have the absolute ability to be a world leader because you've got this squareness here. You've got the global perspective. And this is your channel of intuition. You are already so incredibly intuitive Imagine if this toe was tracking straighter, and your intuitive abilities would be off the charts. And I know that this is something that is important to you. So if for no other reason you started to massage and gently push in here and then push out here as much as possible. We don't want to hurt it. We don't want to force it. This is gentle energy, but just inviting the energy to track. Sorry about that. To track forward, moving forward and straight. Okay. The other thing is this I am toe. Okay. This toe here that's like wondering is our identity. This correlates with the first house. Is leaning into all of these other toes. It's like, hey, can you tell me who I am? Can you tell me what I need? As opposed to saying, this is who I am, and this is what I need. So, like, we're talking prophecy seer kind of level of intuition that would be easy for you when you open this up. The work is getting that there. This is going to come naturally. When I say this and move this, I mean the intuitiveness, the seer level intuition that you are absolutely is 100% possible in this lifetime. So gently pushing in on these protrusions here and pushing out here. I would also recommend, and I don't often recommend this, but some of those toe separators. Again, this isn't about forcing it. This is about gently inviting the energy to track straight. All right. I would be curious to know how much pain your feet experience. I would really recommend, as part of your self-care, spending some time with your feet in, one of those little like personal spa things and some Epsom salts. Again, with the intention of releasing what no longer serves you and setting the energy, tracking for highest and best good. When you have no nails here, or, some, you've clearly got, some brittleness going on here. I don't know if you've got fungus in these toenails. It looks like that's possible, but definitely very, very little nail here. And so the question here is, what are some toxic thoughts that are blocking your growth? And journaling about those, screaming about those. You're such a fiery person with this fiery energy. So, rage rooms are a thing. That might be a really good thing for you to just move some of that big energy, that big fire energy, and really realizing and stepping more into your power. Part of the reason, and I think that you already know this, and I want to confirm this for you, part of the reason why you have not been allowed so far to express is because people always read energy. Even people that don't think that they're intuitive, they read energy. And people have been afraid of your power your whole life. And I know that you're not like a big person. So, even in your physicality, you're not radiating from a physical standpoint this power, but it's a radiation from your internal self, from that, from your heart space, from your essence, that is radiating out this massive power that can feel scary to people. This massive power that, is like a fire that can keep people at a little bit of a distance because they don't want to get burned. But you won't burn people. And I invite you to trust yourself, fifth toe. Trust yourself that you won't burn people. because relationships are so important to you. And as you become increasingly intentional and selective about who gets to be in your inner circle, you're going to be able to trust yourself more, because it's like we talked about with this toe. Yes, you're going to let people down, and sometimes you're going to break people's trust, but not so deeply that it's irreparable, because humans make mistakes. We're in love with humans. We have relationships with humans. I'm really sorry that I clicked off of that again. There's more messages here, but you're going to get them as you massage these toes specifically. All the others could use it. Relaxing your feet in one of those personal little spa things. But as you massage these toes, as you push in here and push out here and invite the energy to move, you're going to get some of the most powerful messages of your life. I also invite you to have the intention, as you push this toe away from these other toes, that you are allowing this intuition, this inspiration to flow in you and through you. I can't wait to hear about what messages you receive. I can't wait to see what you do in the second half of your life, because you have so much power potential. I know that you know that, and I confirm this to you, that you're here to make a global impact and step into, this is the lifetime to step into your power. Thanks so much for the honor of reading your toes.